Hi everyone, my name is Nate and I'm an actor-educator from Climb Theater. Now, normally I would be teaching in your classroom live, but in order to adapt to our temporary nationwide effort to care for each other, I'm coming to you from the comfort of my own home with this Climb Theater Live digital lesson. Now, today we will be talking about resiliency, self-control, and how to take breaks and calm down. More specifically, we will be talking about how to take breaks when talking about the news surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, which I can say with confidence is pretty stressful stuff for just about anybody. And at the end of the lesson, we will be making a special origami folded paper project. So get your paper ready, but not to worry. Today, our class will be like a little digital vacation from all the news and virus talk and statistics. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Now, today we'll be talking about resiliency and self-control. Well, self-control is being in charge of our thoughts, words, and actions. But what about resiliency? Let's define that word. Resilient. You have a minute and a half to type your answers in the comments of what you think it means to be resilient, while I get a quick change of scenery. That's better. Now, before you go worrying about me being at the beach, I promise I am still at my home. I'll explain shortly, but first, let's talk about resiliency. At Climb, we say that we are resilient when we keep going, even when bad things happen. What does that have to do with me being at the beach? Good question. Well, I'm not actually at the beach. With these new digital classes, we've learned a lot about new ways to add technology into our lessons in fun ways. So by having a positive outlook and making the most of a challenge of working from home and far away from each other, we've created some really cool effects. And I can pretend to be on the beach when reality is that I haven't left my room. But I know not everybody has the luxury of bringing the beach to them or getting to stay home at all. You at home might know someone who's considered an essential worker, which means that they do a job that's really important, like being a doctor or nurse, postal worker, or especially in the food service industry, like working in a grocery store or a supermarket. Not being able to stay home, even when the government and health experts recommend that we should, can be really scary. In fact, I think a lot of us might be feeling pretty scared right now. I'm going to give you a minute and a half, and I want you to share something that you are afraid of in the comments. It can be something that has to do with this pandemic, or it could be something else totally unrelated. Your time starts now. Thank you all for sharing. I'll share something that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of getting sick. I'm also afraid of heights. I'll let you in on a little secret, though. Most often, we as human beings are most afraid of things that we don't understand. But let's talk a little bit more about fear. How does fear affect our body? One way that we know that fear affects our body is something called the stress response, also known as the fight or flight response. This response is something that exists in humans and every animal in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you to Harvard Medical School for the following information brought to you in light speed. When our brain perceives a threat, like when a zebra sees a lion approaching or when we see a car coming towards us, the information from what we see, hear, or both is sent to the emotional processing part of the brain, which is called the amygdala. The amygdala processes the information, and if it detects danger, it sends a distress signal to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is like command center of the brain, which communicates to other areas of the brain, is in charge of the autonomic nervous system, which contains all the involuntary body processing emotions, such as breathing, blood pressure, heart rate, dilation, or restriction of key blood vessels in small areas in the muscle molecules. All nervous systems,
Let's break that down, shall we? What is the stress response? Well, every time we use our five senses to see, hear, smell, touch, or taste something, our brain sends it to the command center, this thing called the hypothalamus, that tells our bodies if it's a good thing or a bad thing, something that could hurt us or something that could help us. And our bodies do whatever that command center says. So, if the command center says something is bad and dangerous for us, our body responds. It says, that's a threat. Our heart beats faster and blood rushes so that we can react to that big threat really, really fast. In that split second, several changes happen all at once in your body. Your heart starts beating faster, which helps you breathe in more oxygen, and you can suddenly think much more clearly. Your pupils dilate. The black circle in the middle of your eyeballs, they get really big, which helps you to see better. Your body gives you a burst of energy so that you can get away quickly or fight if you really need to. Your body gets really tense and stiff, which means that you might feel like you're frozen solid until that command center, the hypothalamus, decides what you need to do. You might also get goosebumps. If your hypothalamus, that command center, decides that there is danger, it might decide that you don't need to use energy to digest food or fight off germs in that moment, which can make your stomach feel funny or make it easier to get sick, but only for that moment. You have trouble focusing on small things or details because your command center, say it with me, the hypothalamus, only sees the danger and can't think about the little things that don't matter for survival. All of those things happen in an instant without us really having to think about it. But what does that have to do with the COVID-19 pandemic? We aren't zebras, and we don't usually face dangers like that on a regular basis. Well, the stress response evolved in animals to help them survive, but as humans, where our stress comes from is a lot more complicated. Right now, feeling afraid of getting sick or not knowing what might happen next are examples of stressful thoughts that are causing a lot of people, kids and grown-ups alike, to feel low levels of that fight or flight response, that stress response that we just learned about. After a long period of time of our brain and our body having this response over and over, our bodies get tired and it can actually lower our immune systems and our ability to stay healthy. But fear not, my good friends, for all is not lost, and we still have the power to be in charge of our words, our thoughts, and our actions. Feeling lots of really big emotions all the time, way more than we're used to, it can actually have a huge effect on our bodies. Ever noticed where in your body you feel certain emotions? For example, you might feel funny in your stomach or throat when you feel anger, or you might feel it in your chest when you feel sad, or feeling afraid might make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, or how when we smile when we feel happy. These are all ways that emotions are felt in our bodies, and that's where we feel them, and it can be a little different for everyone. This is kind of chilly though, so can we get back to somewhere warm, please? Yes. This is much better. Now, when we feel When we feel scared all the time, our bodies and our minds start to get really tired, and it can get harder for us to act like we normally would. We might feel more big feelings or feel like we aren't feeling anything at all, and it can be something that really sticks with you. We call this trauma. The word itself sounds big and scary, but it can be common, and we all deal with traumatic things. Let me give you an example. When I was 4, I went into a haunted house at the Minnesota State Fair. I got so scared that they had to let my family out the back door, and I never set foot near a haunted house again, even though I, actor educator Nate, know that haunted houses are pretend and can be fun. That event was really stressful, and I will probably think of those terrified feelings I felt whenever I go see or go by a haunted house. A lot of experts and psychologists seem to agree that this pandemic qualifies as a mass trauma event, similar to an earthquake or a hurricane. Now, I know that sounds scary in and of itself, and while it is, it's also okay and even helpful to acknowledge that it's scary, because it helps us to remember that we're not alone in how we feel. For all the students watching, first, let me say this. What you are feeling is completely reasonable given the circumstances. Your feelings might not seem normal because they aren't. This situation is not normal, and that is a statement of fact. We know how to handle studying for a spelling test. We know how to handle the stress of getting ready for a big soccer game or a dance recital, because in all those situations we are prepared and we know what to expect because someone has done it before. Fortunately, this pandemic is not something we as a society have ever had to be prepared for, because it just doesn't happen on a global scale on a regular basis. Unfortunately, because no one has ever gone through this before, we don't have the comfort of previous experience to help guide us through what happens next. Because of that, we are likely all feeling a lot of big emotions that we might not be used to or understand. Signs of trauma or stress can look really different from person to person, but here's what the CDC says some kids and teenagers might be experiencing as a result of all the bad stuff happening right now. Crying or feeling more irritable than normal. Returning to behaviors they've outgrown, for example, bedwetting or nail biting. Excessive worry or sadness. Unhealthy eating or sleeping habits. Irritability and acting out behavior in teens. Poor school performance or avoiding school entirely. Difficulty with attention and concentration. Avoiding activities enjoyed in the past. Unexplained headaches or body pain, and use of tobacco, alcohol, or other drugs in teenagers. Feeling a lot of really big emotions all the time, way more than we're used to, can actually have a huge effect on our bodies too. Ever noticed where in your body you feel certain emotions? For example, you might get a funny feeling in your stomach or throat when you feel anger, or you might feel it in your chest when you feel sad. Or feeling afraid might make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Or how we smile when we feel happy. These are all the ways that we feel emotions in our bodies, and it can be a little different for everyone. It is important to remember that we can use our self-control to be in charge of how we act and how we respond to those big feelings. An event like this one hasn't happened to us in a long time, especially in a time when we are so connected as we are now. We have the ability to know what's going on across the world minute to minute with the internet, but it isn't always in our best interests to constantly check the news. Some say knowledge is power, others say ignorance is bliss, but I say that we fear what we don't understand. By taking a little time to be informed and educated, we can equip ourselves the best that we can to handle anything. But when we get wrapped up in learning all about every single awful thing happening constantly, we lose emotional energy that would be better off spent elsewhere. Now, that's often easier said than done. We're so connected these days, and sometimes we are curious. So how do we decide what is good to know and what will only further stress us out? How do we know when to take breaks? Here are some of my do's and don'ts. Do. Stay updated on local news and outbreaks that pertain to your health. Don't. Scroll endlessly through article after article explaining things happening that don't directly affect you.
We naturally want to know what's going on and often will feel a deep need deep down to try to help those in need in whatever possible way, which is really great and very important. But we must take care of ourselves first, and worrying about what we should or could be doing can prevent us from doing what is best for our own health. Do make time to do things that bring you joy. Don't feel guilty for not being able to do everything like you normally do. Schoolwork, chores, even if you're struggling to do things that you normally enjoy, that's all okay. Do be patient with yourself. The struggle means you are actively learning to adapt to a new environment, and that's incredible. Be proud of what you can accomplish and forgive yourself for the things that slipped through the cracks.
When we have way more information than we could possibly need, we get too focused on all the bad things happening and forget about the good. What are some sources of stress for you in your life? You have 1.5 minutes to type your answers in the comments. Thank you all for sharing. Those sound pretty stressful. When we need to take a break from the news, stressful things, or just from feeling bad about being stuck at home, we can use these steps for resiliency and self-control. Remember, self-control is being in charge of our thoughts, words, and actions. Resiliency is when we keep going even when bad things happen. When we need help with self-control or being resilient, we can bounce. Repeat after me like an echo. Breathe. O, own your space. U, use helper words. I've got this. I can do this. I can keep going. New position, shoulders down, with our chin up, and embrace positivity. Or exit if you don't feel safe. Now, sometimes we know we want to be doing literally anything other than whatever it is we're doing in the moment, such as listening to news or trying to do schoolwork or even just sitting and being bored. What are some things that you can do at home to keep yourself busy or take a break from stressful things? Thank you all for submitting your answers. Here are some of my suggestions for what you can do when you need a break from stressors. You can take a walk or get some fresh air. Just remember to not get too close to people that you don't live with. Stay 6 feet apart and don't share objects or play on playground equipment. You can touch something soft, like a pet or a stuffed animal, or even a soft item of clothing. You can distract the part of your brain that is worried or feeling stressed by using tactile sensations, meaning touching something that feels good. Even just running your hands over a rug or carpet can be enough to distract you for a few seconds if you're feeling particularly overwhelmed. Other helpful ways to distract your brain if you're feeling, Other helpful ways to distract your brain and disrupt that stress response signal can be to use very cold temperatures, such as drinking a cold beverage with ice in it, or splashing your face with cold water. Make sure to take care of your body. When we don't have our normal routines, we can forget to do things that are important, like eat properly or eating enough, or maintaining our personal hygiene. If you're feeling irritable or really low energy, make a mental checklist. Have you eaten recently? Taken a shower? Have you slept enough? Naps are okay sometimes, especially since your body uses up more energy being worried or stressed than if you felt calm like normal. If you ran a marathon, you'd probably need a nap too, but don't sleep too much. Getting the right amount of sleep can help your body recover every night and improve your mood. You can also make art or do a craft project like the one I'm about to teach you. Here's what we're making today. Folded paper stars. Take a sheet of whatever paper you have. I'm using printer paper, but any kind of recycled scratch paper can work too. Measure out and mark every centimeter or quarter of an inch along the long side. Cut strips of paper and write down a worry or a fear or a source of stress on each strip of paper. Then fold like so to make a knot. Tuck the little tail in like this. And start to wrap the long end around the pentagon like this. Pull it tight, but not too tight that it squashes the shape. When you run out of length, tuck the end into a pocket and pinch it like this to make a star. See what you just did? You made the most out of something negative. You turned your stress and fear into art. You could take a needle and thread and make a necklace out of these, or you could glue them into a design on another piece of paper. What you do with them is up to you. But the most important part is to pretend that you are transferring the very idea of that fear, of that worry, onto these strips of paper so that it will not drag you down anymore. Of course, it's still okay to think about that fear or worry, but this is a great activity to calm yourself down because it requires all of your attention, and these stars are super fun to make. Another way to use them is to write down a positive thought or something that brings you joy and collect them in a jar. And then one day when you're having a hard time or struggling to be resilient, you can take a star from the jar and open it up. You can use them to help you be resilient, which means to keep moving forward even when bad things happen. If you're having any big emotions, you can bounce, breathe, own your space, use helper words, I got this, I can do this. Find a new position with your chin up and embrace positivity. Now, I have one last challenge for all of you. If you do decide to try out these paper stars or to use the bounce steps at home, or find your own way to take a break from all of the stress and the news, take a picture or a video, post it, and tag us at Climb Theater. We'd love to see all of your creative ideas at work. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Climb Theater Live. If you like this programming, please like and share this post, and make sure to follow us on our Facebook page at Climb Theater to get notified whenever we have programming. Parents, there will be a link in the post available anytime, even after the broadcast, to several resources for help dealing with talking to your kids about trauma. To learn more about who we are and what we do, or if you're interested in donating to our organization, head on over to climb.org and find more info and more fun for the whole family. Thank you again so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.